Hello everyone. If you have watched the previous race on this channel, then you know this is a double header between our two teams here, Begone Pot and Beats from the East. If you haven't, then guess what? This is a double header. I am Hammer Bro. This is week 5. Welcome to the ALTTPR League. This is the week where the swords and the curtains have both disappeared. I'm Hammer Bro, and I am joined in the classroom by the one and only Professor Renderer. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing really, really well. I was meaning to do some commentary for League Soreless because my team just did ours just really quickly, and looks like we're already off on that note.
Speaking of quickly, we have two relatively useful items there. The Ice Rod in Link's house is nice because we won't have to chase it. And the Boomerang is nice for stunning items early on. I did not see Hera, but I'm pretty sure Eastern and Desert were both regular crystals.
They were green pendants. I caught that quickly. I just wanted to look on the other side to see what the Desert one was. So, in case anyone who's coming into this and don't know what Swordless is basically, well, it just kind of sits under the tin. You don't have a sword, and if you were to get a sword, it's just replaced with a green 20. But the difference between what makes it the League Swordless is that the bow is combined into one. There's a bow that gives you not only the bow itself, but also silver arrows attached to it. So that means you don't have to hunt for the bow, the silver bow, when you're like probably dropping down again and to find information about that.
Right. Speaking of that, with it being swordless, you are required to use the hammer to murder a handful of things. One of those things is Aga 2, so we are really happy to find that bug nate because it makes Aga 2 quite a bit easier than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and just speaking from personal experience, just by me practicing for the league, was that doing Aga 2 with a hammer is not fun at all.
It's not, because it ends up being the angle that you reflect the ball at ends up being partially timing and partially position, and it's really easy to get one of those two wrong.
Yeah, and whereas with Aga 1, you really just gotta standing farther away from Aga, and then it's just all about timing from there.
Exactly. So we did see a wonderful hula hand strat from Slumberjack, which netted them an early 225 rupees to go ahead and grab some bombs, I'm sure, if the seed decides to be unkind. Thus far, from Homemade Beer's side, it doesn't look like the seed is going to be giving us any bombs, or at least any bombs relatively easily. We'll see if maybe a tier 2 drop ends up being a little nicer, but I don't anticipate it.
Homemade Beard also did do a lumberjack check, and that's just a piece of heart, so we're not going to kill Aga just for the item, but we might be in position to do Aga for the Dark World, because we did find a lamp early.
Yeah, I was going to say, you went ahead and mentioned something about Aga, and the lamp appeared, which is one of those pieces.
Yeah, it's also something to point out that is all you really need is like a cape or a hammer to get yourself into Aga Tower, and then some offensive weapon if you have a cape, and just no hammer.
That being said, the seed was at least nice enough to hand us Blue Mail, which is incredibly useful, as without a sword, there will be damage taken.
Yeah, it's with mail. Mail's very valuable, just in this mode, because you are going to be taking a lot of damage. That's kind of the thing about League Soreless, that you have to play the game a way differently than you normally would. It's more of it's in a way its own different puzzle.
Yeah, most definitely. And adding to that difference in puzzle, the fact that we are sitting here looking for one item to be both our bow and our silvers does make certain checks more and less likely to be useful. You will see runners less likely wanting to run into pod without that bow, because you're not going to find a bow that's bow locked. There's only one in the game, and it's not going to be there.
Just a quick aside here, we did find boots in the back of the tavern, so hey, we got some early speed, and we don't have to worry about any boots locked locations.
The fun part is those boots also mean that we get to run into enemies at full blast now with no sword to protect us.
Yep, and you can't just like since it's swordless, I don't believe you can just rush into enemies and just push them away with your sword because you don't have a sword.
Yep, it's a bit of a double-edged sword that way, or rather, not one at all.
Lack thereof, really.
Yeah, there we go. I'm not gonna lie, seeing that chicken dash upward just is making me laugh harder than it should.
The chicken spread's great. The cuckoo is like the most. It's a really fun emote, like that, or like the think dorm emoji. That's a really good one too. A lot of these like joke like sprites are pretty amusing.
They have that as a sprite. How have I never seen that?
It doesn't come up quite a lot. In my experience seeing it, it just kind of rare-ish. I mean, we do see the Untitled Goose on certain occasions, but yeah, but that's either here, there, or anywhere. We're here to play rando, and we're talking about this. This is a fairly cack, save for the boots.
Yeah, the boots are nice. The lamp means we won't have to deal with swordless dark rooms, which isn't terrible. The ice rod means we won't have to chase it down, and the mail is not something we're going to say no to. But in terms of like a giant flashing arrow saying, "Hey, dingus, go this way after you're out of here," we're still kind of waiting for that.
Slumberjack won't say no to a heart container. I mean, considering the boots were readily available, I don't believe it will be any problem for these runners to just go ahead and pick them up. I mean, Homemade Beer will skip it, but it's in Swordless, I think you value your health a lot more than you normally do, considering the difference. The reliance on the Y items more.
Yeah, I would say that if Homemade Beer didn't have that blue mail, that heart would have definitely been grabbed either way. But I feel like the blue mail gives you a little more safety than you're otherwise assuming you're going to have 7 minutes in.
Correct. Yeah, and we'll see the one check for the one boots check that we have, which is the bonk rocks, and it just only gives you a 20 rupee. So yeah, we will see a mini Moldorm cave check, which is a cave.
Oh no.
So we are at least now. We need to find an offensive weapon for Aga to be in play. I mean, hey, well, also, I mean, we don't say no to red mail either.
No, red mail's nice, but at some point, like, while red mail is definitely not something you're going to say no to, you also don't want to be in a situation an hour down the line where you have 14 hearts in red mail and no mirror. That can get kind of aggravating. So while I'm not saying no to red mail, I'm kind of saying, could you hand me a mirror now, please? We do still have a decent amount of checks, though. We have not checked anything in the eastern area, which includes Saucerless Closet. We haven't checked anything in Escape. Though, honestly, with the way the items are going, it wouldn't surprise me to see our runners basically last location Escape and then go from that to Aga if it doesn't provide us with what we need.
Now, there is one downside to the early red mail, and it's that it's just that death warping is going to take quite a long time.
Exactly.
Regardless, I mean, really, I mean, the Samaria counts as an offensive weapon. It does count.
It does, but it's also technically out of logic.
Right, yeah.
And it's not what I would consider an ideal offensive item for killing ball and chain guards with.
Which is true, yeah. I mean, you'd want to like use pots instead, but or something akin to it. But you probably would it better if you had like a fire rod or whatever.
Right, fire rod, hammer, something, please. Meanwhile, homemade beer not having enough money for Zorus. We are skipping that for now. The man under the bridge, though, is not getting a skip, and he is going to hand us, not bad, $50.
Right, yeah, because the Samaria was in the waterfall ferry, and it's you need flippers for that, so that still is out of logic. So it looks like a homemade beer might want to head to the desert area, or maybe just wanting to. Okay, I guess what he's wanting to do is that he decided to leave the dam alone, and then he's gonna go directly to the desert from here. Looks like.
Right, it's an active strategy that some people use to not make Agana's cave a terrible thing 10 minutes in. So you do mini Moldorm cave and then Ice Palace and then Ice Rod cave and then either fake flipper or don't, and then immediately afterwards you go do the dam and do Agana's cave, because then it prevents you from doing all that first round and then just looking at Agana's cave like, I'm not going over there ever.
Right, unless it just falls on your lap later on.
Exactly, unless you find a flute or something that makes it super easy, or unless you're otherwise over there to go clear out desert. $50 on the ledge, meanwhile.
Now, slightly different. Slight difference is that Slumberjack is going to go ahead and do the Zora check, whereas Homemade Beer wouldn't be able to do it. Didn't do it because he didn't have money at the time. This is because of that 225 rupee count you got from the Houlihan. We won't say no to a red boomerang. And we won't say no to that moon pearl that's on Agina's cave.
So yeah, so both runners dealing with not like leaving an item way out there, and Slumberjack's play working out a little better with that moon pearl. Although I will say, having the moon pearl and no other methodology for Dark World is just making Aga more and more likely, unfortunately.
And then actually, as one of our chat members is pointing out that that actually is Aga Tower with the equipment that we have. Sure, Samaria is out of logic still, but hey.
Right, not only is it Aga Tower, but it's Aga Tower and then everything in the pod area afterwards. So it's not even Aga Tower for like maybe finding something in one check. It's actually a reasonable check to do, which makes it all the more terrifying. You know, I keep forgetting that's a thing. That's really nice knowledge to have.
Yeah, that's a really good game knowledge thing. That is something that I don't ever like consider, period, because it doesn't ever occur to me to enter the right snitch, the right snitch house for that particular tree pull.
Yeah, it's just not a thing that like pops into your head, but it's something that you see like once a year and you're like, oh, that was a really cool thing, and then you like immediately forget about it 2 hours later.
Yeah, it's very much a niche thing to know about, but it's nice to have it in the back pocket in case you want to bring it up.
Exactly. So yeah, we have both runners heading towards Eastern now, Slumberjack already being here. We've pulled a map, and as fun as burritos are to eat, they don't give us progression.
Really big key, being in the front means, I mean, well, it didn't really matter because we already have lamp, but if we didn't have lamp, then fire rod would have been a legal spot for the back if we had bow.
This would be a wild spot to find the bow. especially as we don't have two of them, so... Ooh. Won't say no to that glove. That does make routing the back of escape quite a bit quicker. It also gives us access to some stuff up the mountain. Not much as of right now, but still 2 checks and something you can take a look at.
And 10 arrows were in the big chest.
So that is 2 items, and now we're sitting here with a 50-50 potential to grab the third here, or potentially have the third sitting behind the boss.
I mean, we do at least have some. So with the glove and the lamp that we have, we can at least go up the mountain. I think we're almost running out of checks. I mean, there is still front of escape, and that's possible. You can get all 3 items, all 3 items that you can possibly get from the front of escape. But not even though really it's just 6 items in total.
Yeah, between the gloves and all the rest of it, we are going to be able to full clear escape, and then, like I said, go do 2 items up the mountain at least, and go take a look at a third, assuming that we don't get a hookshot or a mirror out of any of these aforementioned checks. But we are, as you said, we're running low. You know, those checks are starting to be in single digits now, where it's like, okay, we've got about 6 items left to look at. Okay, so that hook shot increases. That gives us about 8 more, and it teaches me that when I open my mouth, things happen.
Slumberjack, I think maybe had a little bit of muscle memory, wanting to try to go to the back of the Dark Cross, but there was no key in the back of escape, so just a little awkward. Oh, okay, might as well save quit. But hey, we have a hook shot, so that's fine.
Yep. Now that mountain check is 10 checks and 1 check that you can look at, as opposed to 2 checks plus 1 check you can look at.
So when the hammer shows up, then hey, that eliminates the AGA consideration. Although Slumberjack has yet to go up to Agita's cave, from considering he ended up doing he did the dam before doing Mini Moldorm.
Right, and that's that one thing that Homemade Beer very explicitly avoided doing by dodging the dam the first time and then coming back down for it. But either way, that's not going to end up being a huge deal, I don't think, unless Slumberjack finds mitts up here. Then that could be a situation where when Homemade Beer gets up here, he'll be able to do all the Light World stuff and then all the Dark World stuff, whereas Slumberjack will be able to do Super Bunny Cave because, well, it's called Super Bunny Cave for a reason, but won't be able to do the Hookshot Cave.
And we do see the 1 arrow.
Well, that is a bit of a misnomer. There's 1 arrow normally, but because we have progressive bows, and Slumberjack real happy he has that glove because he falls in a really unfortunate spot there otherwise. But that second bow, or what normally would be the progressive bow, is now a second singular arrow. So you get twice the fun.
Right, yeah, because I seen that. I only mentioned it because this is the single arrow that's just in the item pool, and not just that was just converted into a single arrow from the bow. And hey, there's the first sword that we would have gotten if we weren't playing swordless.
Yep, Slumberjack with the first Invisisword of the game. And we will see if Paradox Cave has anything resembling usefulness other than a pretend sword. Hello, Flippers! Okay.
So that's your logical Samaria, and yeah.
That is your logical Samaria. Unfortunately, it's not a hammer or the mitts. Aga is still looming, and those checks are further dwindling.
Yes, and it might just come down to the point where you may have to use Samaria for the top, or for the climb.
Right. I feel like in a situation where you either find the flippers, which end up putting Soma in logic, or you find an actual weapon that doesn't do fighter sword damage, our runners would have preferred to just find another weapon and have Soma not be in logic. But here we are.
Yeah, if we were to compare the scaling for weapons here, I would say like the hammer is like the equivalent to like a diamond sword in Minecraft. I guess that's a little bit of a stretch, but point stands.
I feel like I'd liken it to an iron axe, which does the same damage but is a bit slower. But anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean,
talking too much about Minecraft.
I started it, so.
Anyway, Slumberjack gonna grab their $50, I believe, from our bridge dweller, and homemade beer is going to catch a free ferry.
Okay, so I think with this, there's just what, Friend of Escape left?
I think so. I think we're looking at Front of Escape and just Front of Escape. Now, Front of Escape could get us a book, but outside of a book or a fetch quest, we're looking at Front of Escape and yeah.
Yeah, it's just the fact that we're just running low on checks. It's kind of what happens with the early game. You start to run out of checks really quick, and if you don't have anything by then well, you have to kill Aga. So, make with that what you will.
At least, thankfully, with the relatively early boots and not having to worry about like double dipping everything. Getting to the point where Ag is required and you're sitting at only about 24 minutes is going to be much better than it could otherwise be. I've easily seen stuff, especially with Swordless, where you either get Dark World access or get knowledge of, oh, I really have to go do Aga, and you're like 35 minutes in, and that feels just awful.
So here's Slumberjack heading over to the desert area. This will result in a Moon Pearl for him. And this is kind of the things where it's like, if you don't get that Moon Pearl, like if you leave a Genus Cave out alone and it end up being Moon Pearl, it's like, oh, this is just a bottleneck. But if you did what Homemade Beer did, it's like, okay, then it's not as bad of a bottleneck, but it kind of still is in a way, but you don't feel as bad to leave it alone.
Right. And like I said, because we didn't pull the mitt off of the mountain, it's not a situation where you feel like you've lost a huge opportunity with being able to check all those checks at the same time. All right, so this is our second to last check. It is $20, and I believe we just have Dark Cross, and I believe, yeah, we have seen the map, and we have seen the key. So there's something here.
Yeah, thankfully, regardless of mail, these the guards will still have a heart. So it's not just, it isn't affected by the mail situation. So that's a pretty easy death warp. But even then, it's still going to come to a point where death warping is going to be really, really slow because of the red mail.
So a potential snag right now. I don't think anything drops magic, and Slumberjack doesn't currently have any.
I haven't paid close attention to the prize packs, so that definitely could be a problem. And it looks like we're going to have to climb the tower here.
Yeah, so getting through escape isn't going to be super difficult because the bee is going to handle these next couple and be okay. But the issue at hand is going to be, how do you climb the tower? We're going to need magic to use that cape, and then we're going to need magic to use Samaria. So Homemade Beer is going to go check Zora, I would assume, yeah. Which gives Slumberjack a little more time, but still gonna need that magic.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things too. Is that, I mean, you do have bottles in your back pocket, so you can at least get some bottles on hand. I guess we're not doing Zora, but we're just here for the potions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Interesting. But I get it too. Doing Zora is kind of an out of the way. It's kind of out of the way, and you're only getting a red boomerang out of it, which I mean, both boomerangs aren't terrible. One flies farther than the other one, and that helps when we're doing various strats. The
blue boomerang is clearly superior, and I will fight you on that.
I mean, I red boomerang has its uses.
No, it doesn't. It's useless. Get out of here. Blue boomerang forever.
Anyway, we're just gonna go and climb Maga Tower now.
And this is how Slumberjack is gonna get his magic. Which, I mean, that'll work. Now we get to see 8 hits per guard. Woohoo!
Yeah, this is very much not ideal, but it does count. It is an offensive weapon. As much as it pains me to say that.
You know, I don't think it's paining you as much as it's gonna pain Slumberjack and Homemade Beer.
Right, yeah. It's a situation where, like, you really want a better weapon, not this.
Well, right, and that's why, or at least part of the reason why, we're seeing our runners clear literally everything but this.
Yeah, and it looks like Slumberjack
realizing you don't have enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you don't have you need more magic than that.
Right, unless you're going to use bombs, and that's going to take forever, and you're going to need to go to Capacity Cave to get some.
Yeah, and that's why, and this is why Homemade Beer went to the potion shop in the first place. He knows that this is going to be this is a Samaria climb, and it's not the best weapon you can possibly have for this climb, but you need at least something to make up your magic. You don't have Pap magic. You only have Samaria as your means of attack. And here you're seeing Ice Rod to some degree, just to try to get rid of to freeze the bottom Bogard, so that he gets the key.
So speaking of things I didn't know, I was familiar with the fact that I knew that they were invulnerable to the Ice Rod. I also knew that the Ice Rod kills the blue guards in one shot. I didn't know that did not apply to the blue archers.
That actually I didn't know. I've heard that too. So that's an interesting property that. It's, I guess, like the different sword or the different guard types, like the different guard weapons affected to some degree. I don't know. It just feels kind of weird.
Right, because I always thought it was color based initially, because the Ice Rod freezes the green guard and then kills the blue guard. So I was like, okay, blue guard, blue Ice Rod. I see how this works. You're trying to be cute with it, but then watching it freeze the blue archer, I was just like, oh, wait a minute, that was a wrinkle in the plan I hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I didn't even realize you can actually freeze the blue to actually quick kill the blue guards with the Ice Rod. All right, 0 to 15 blue balls. Assuming you hit them all,
I mean,
which is kind of a tall order.
are blue balls like other stuff and that they're cheaper by the dozen?
Maybe?
Spectacular. Let's go with 12 then.
I guess really it's just if you just see how many blue, I guess the better make it lenient. How many blue balls will he fire even if he misses like that?
One. Wee. Ugh. All right, so far the max is only 11, so my 12 just didn't work out, which is fine.
I mean, at least having the bug net's great because now at least if you're you have a decent range with that bug net.
You know what? I'm willing to bet they'd prefer to have the hammer because then they just wouldn't be here.
Right. It would that way the hammer would have been great for this because that way you wouldn't have to climb, and that just would trivialize the climb in the first place.
Slumberjack, meanwhile, real happy for that red mail. Meanwhile, I think that's 4 on Aga. Oh, there's 5.
Keep in mind, he did miss a red ball originally, so this is just regardless. I guess regardless if he misses, so like just in general. That was 5.
Yep. And now you have full access to the Dark World, basically, and not in a fun way.
Yeah, you again, you have Samaria, you have Ice Rod, you have a shield, which we are gonna pick up. If I was Lana being in this, I would probably would avoided it.
I'm picking up that shield with the way that this race is going, just because I might be able to find another one and then make blind quite a bit easier.
Yeah, that's true. And you have to make concessions when you're playing League Sortless, or just Sortless in general. That means what you would, if you just pick up a shield, if you see a shield, you might as well pick it up. And you gotta make some fights help much more easier.
Right. I also feel like seeds have a bit of like a behavior pattern, and this seed just seems like it's gonna be mean. So I'm trying to protect myself from the rudeness. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be one thing if we had a bunch of items and I had a clear path on where to go and everything just seems nicer, but that's really not what's going on here. So I'm grabbing that shield, I'm saving my butt, and I'm gonna hope that I don't need that shield.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just more so, it's just more of an impulse thing to me to say, okay, cool, we could avoid that shield. We don't just even though, yeah, this is Sortless, and it's like, yeah, you might as well.
Yep, so Homemade Beer has elected to skip pod. The play makes sense. Unfortunately, with what we have, it means that if progression is sitting in pod, this is going to be a long route back.
Yeah, and we don't have mirror, so that means you would have to go through the castle portal, and if you just to get it around, really, because you don't have hammer for you don't have hammer to just get to the bottom the Link's House portal to begin with. You don't have bits to do the to get to the CAC portal, and you especially don't have mirror for 5/6s, Pod Mire, and Pendants, Thieves, and Ice.
I think if you're going from Hype Cave, it might be faster to use those flippers to swim past the Dark World shopping mall area to get over to Pod, but it's probably about a 50-50, honestly.
Yeah, it's still kind of slow.
Oh yeah, no, it's not fun either way. And if progression ends up being in Pod, then at this point you've run through the entirety of the Dark World, basically not picked up anything, and now you're sitting here like, Damn, I should have done this first. But never mind. We find a hammer in Skull Wood, so everything honestly is okay. It's
Okay, so that's good because that does mean that finding a hammer in pod would have just been it wouldn't have been like, oh, this is a I lose situation.
Right, absolutely. Even if you're logically looking at it and going, well, my opponent probably did the same thing, there's a voice in the back of your head screaming, I've just lost by 15 minutes because I didn't get the hammer.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things, really. Oh, that's one way to get to the edge. Oh, thanks, Bari. I really appreciate it. But again, I was gonna say, oh, don't do this again. Don't do this to me again. Bari, please. There we go. And for a key.
At this point, the timing was just embarrassing.
Oh my. Jeez.
Oh, I got him. Oh, it feels good. Have you missed commentating with me?
Yes.
Alright, so on that note, Homemade Beer is still looking for another item, and it's in the back.
Oh man. So Slumberjack also did the same check, the same thing that Homemade did. Just did end up doing Catfish, found out it was nothing, and then just hookshot over to the top, the Northern Dark World to head to Skull Woods. This will result in a hammer. C-shaped house doesn't have anything, and Slumberjack making the more logical approach and just not even bothering with the Bari in general. Just let them probably deal with the mini Moldorms instead.
Yep, left side, bomb jump, easier bomb jump. Oh, hello, Bo.
So there's Pod.
Yeah, there's Pod, there's Eastern, there's a Vitreous that isn't the worst thing on the planet of Hyrule. Yeah, that's the answer to a lot of things, honestly.
So yeah, going to the right side was going over to the Northern Dark Worlds was the right call, really. And much more so because we did find an ether within the Pendant Thieves Town. It could be required, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, relatively likely. I think the odds of any particular medallion being required at this rate are, what is it, 5 out of 9 or something, because we need both Meyer and TR. But I digress.
Okay. We also did find half magic.
Okay, so is this going to be a death warp? It is. Homemade Beer not interested in collecting a pendant today, or at least not yet.
No, it's also 2 items, so it's like it's 2 items from the front. So in a non-green pendant, so it's really like the going to the back in this. Is more of a time commitment. I had a brief internet flash.
Yeah, we've got you back though. No worries. But yeah, like you were saying, with it not being green pendant, you're playing like 4 minutes for 2 items. And then a potential stab at Pod later if things really get out of hand.
All right, we will do the dig game here. And it's 4 digs for 3 bombs. Hey, we're out of here really quickly.
Yeah, that's better than what I usually see. I feel like dig game tends towards 20 plus digs lately.
That's right around average, really. Okay. Stumpy gives us some rupees.
Meanwhile, Slumberjack is going to be headed into Thieves Town relatively shortly, I would imagine. For at least the front four, we'll see what they choose to do after that. Homemade Beer is headed towards Hype Cave, and we'll see if it's going to be anything remotely resembling useful today, because I feel like it's generally a coin toss.
Or, as I like to put it, overhyped.
Usually, yeah, but sometimes it comes through. And let's be honest, there's only 3 5+ item caves in the game other than Paradox, which I kind of just put in its own 7-item insanity. But hey, there would have been a sword there in theory, so I don't know if that counts for anything. But as it is, yeah, Hype Cave could just go stay there.
Yeah, just that's kind of what I mean, really. But we will see the play for, I guess, Pod, considering that Homemade Beer is going to the castle portal.
Yeah, I don't hate this play. Eastern does have 1 item left, and at this point, you're kind of playing the, hey, I could get really lucky and pull a mirror out of Pod, and then finish Pod and just turn around and do Eastern, and it'd be great. Or I could alternatively have to go do Pod and then S&Q and do Eastern, but that's not really much of a time loss over having to go do Eastern and then run around to the portal and go do Pod. So I like the gamble. Speaking of which, we still need quite a few things for go mode here at 41 minutes in. The seed has not been super friendly about handing us handfuls of progression.
Homemade Beer, got a little swarms with some of the enemies here. Had to re-grab Kiki.
Slumberjack is not taking the S&Q. Looks like he is going to be running through these pegs and heading straight into Pod from that method.
Yeah, and this was mentioned that the Homemade's decision to go from the castle portal is slower compared to just going from Hype Cave just from the pegs.
Right. I honestly feel like that was a plan that was made before they found the hammer, and was like, okay, so I'm going to do this, and then that plan just never updated itself after the hammer was grabbed, if I had to guess.
That's probable, but hey, we're not the runners. We can only just inference from what we're seeing.
Absolutely right. And it's a heck of a lot easier to stand here and not have to run around dodging things without a pointy thing to help dodge things and murder things with, and then make comments on how plays are being made. Much harder to think about what you're doing when you're doing it.
So yeah, from here, this is just Pod. Nothing really too special. This is, for what it's worth, Pod. We did find the other bow, which does turn into the, as you mentioned previously, the single arrow, which is the replacement for it.
And without that mirror in hand, Pod at least being friendly to give us 2 keys initially, so we don't have to worry about kind of leaving things behind and or having to death warp multiple times.
Okay, so from here, Homemade just gonna go ahead and just do the bow lock side, because we already have a bow and stuff. It wasn't bow locked, but not like it really mattered because we already had bow coming in.
A death warp? Nope, never mind. Just an over happy dork. Okay.
I'm guessing he may just realize, oh wait a minute, I already have hammer. This I don't need a death warp. It's like I could just run over here. And just do the stair extension,
which is one of those super clean strats. Like, isn't difficult, but looks so good.
it's a little weird. It's interesting. I haven't really used it in quite a while. But I was using it when it was still new. But it's still fun to see it every once in a while.
All right, so far we are almost done with Pod here, and Pod has yet to give up anything remotely resembling fun or otherwise useful.
This is one of the examples of the fact that we have the oh hey, dismiss.
You know what? Open my mouth and something happens.
It's one of those cases where, yeah, having the red mail here is kind of bad because he is on 1.5 hearts, so this isn't really terrible. But this is in the context for Slumberjack, this is gonna take quite a bit to get him down to like a decent health. I guess to be fair, I guess to be fair, the fire still does 1 heart regardless of mail, so I guess it's not too
that's
bad.
the saving grace is that the lizards and their fireballs do 1 heart regardless. But even those can be tricky to kind of line up, especially if you're walking in with 9 hearts like Slumberjack is going to be.
See,
I wouldn't be surprised to see him take a couple of intentional fireballs to the face here, to just make the post big key grab see like that a little bit easier.
See, I was thinking this was the room where I was like, oh yeah, this is really slow. Like this is really slow to death orb on red mail. But I was thinking the Skull Woods bridge instead of this.
Yeah, no, that's bad because on red mail, Gibdos are only doing 1/2 heart, and that's just not fun.
Yeah, that's there. You had to make some there at least some concessions. Well, I guess not concessions, but like saving graces for death orbs on red mail.
All right, meanwhile, homemade beer is headed into the back. We will have our first crystal of the evening, which just tells you how this seed has been.
Yeah, I think really Sorless seeds tend to be a bit on the longer side if the seed it gets pretty bad, just because of the fact that like the sword, without that sword you're relying heavily on your Y items a lot, and it just kind of shows how great it is to have a sword in your hands most of the time, because that way you don't have to deal with these weird edge cases.
Right, and that can put you in a lot of tricky situations, truth be told. 1 dodge from the Helma, 2 dodges from the Helma, there's 3, and there we go.
It's always the tricky thing of that when once you enter phase 2 of Helma, when he moves so fast that your arrow can't catch up, that's just a problem. Like you have to, if he starts like moving immediately, then that's like, yeah, great. I had to like be like somehow very accurate with my shot, even though like I can't react to that.
Right, it ends up being a guess of like, okay, I'm gonna shoot 4 pixels to the left and hope that you move that way, which is just no fun for anyone, honestly.
Other than that, though, that is the first crystal on the board for homemade beer, and soon it will be Slumberjack's first crystal on the board.
I do find it kind of interesting here that homemade beer is going for the mountain here over completing another crystal. I don't necessarily dislike it, but I feel like I would probably just go do Eastern at this point because it's an item and it might be something like the mirror that could make all of this routing a bit easier than it otherwise would be. But again, the chances of that happening are relatively low. So, and this definitely is the density. There's 7 items here, and then Hera, and then maybe TR, which, you know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that like this this play makes more sense because of the fact that you're getting a medallion check. You know this is required. Hey, if it's ether, then we can do fire route STR, and that's always one of those things where it's not particularly bad to have in the back pocket. And hey, we at least know that Turtle Rock requires ether, so we can at least enter it and possibly do fire route with Turtle Rock, which. Yeah, it's not bad. You can get if you get kicked out easily, then cool. That you don't lose a whole lot of time. If you don't get kicked out easily, then okay, we're going all the way to Laser Bridge, and that's a big time consideration.
Right, and that's why I think I would prefer to just go do the crystal first, just in the hopes that this doesn't end up being a thing. But like I said, this is the density, so. That is not, I mean, mushroom's great and all, but come on. Can we have something that's definitive, please?
We can do fake powder from this. But Hookshot Cave, there's our second medallion, that's Bombos. And our flute.
Ooh. Okay, so that is one definitive piece required for Meyer, and then one maybe piece that might help us out here. And it does look like Homemade Beer is going to run into ZR.
Yeah, and this is always one of those plays where it's like, I don't mind doing fire route TR. If you get kicked out early, then that's fine. Like that, you don't lose a whole lot of time to that.
So I'll be upfront with you. I did this once, and I ended up going all the way to Laser Bridge and got nothing for it. So,
right, and that's kind of why I mentioned that it is a big time consideration if you don't get locked out immediately, like what Homemade Beer did.
That was a pretty cool hammer peg setup from Slumberjack there. Not being able to hammer dash because, well, we don't have a sword. But you can have spin speed and then just slam the hammer down repeatedly. Speaking of spin speed.
Yeah, the King's Doom didn't give us anything of note.
Oh, just $20, and Slumberjack is going to be grabbing that $20 here in a second. If that ghost decides to not be a jerk.
So both Slumberjack and Homemade Beer are heading into Kakariko for two different reasons. For Homemade Beer is doing this to activate the flute, and Slumberjack is going to be doing this just to turn into Smith.
Right. The problem is that flute is something that would make the Smith chain significantly faster than it is.
Yes, and that's yeah, it would be because having that flute prior to you doing the Smith chain, it does cut out time from doing anything else. So here, Homemade Beer is opting to go and do fake powder. As I figured that was gonna be the case, just because it does make sense for you to do this display. And there's mirror on the Smiths. Wow, thanks, game.
That is a dumb spot for that mirror, please and thank you.
Thanks, game. And equally as dumb is that Quake.
Okay, so there's a 1 in 3 chance that's a really dumb spot for that Quake, and a 2 in 3 chance that the Quake doesn't matter. But, yuck. Talk about Smith area just being gross.
Yeah, you have two different things that just came out of two different runs, two different routes. Slumberjack doing the Smith chain, mirrorless Smith chain to get mirror from the Smiths, and try saying that 10 times fast. And then Homemade Beer does the more reasonable. I guess I would say reasonable is kind of the more denser play in the form of the Dark Death Mountain to get Mushroom, which will lead into a Quake, which is powder locked.
Renderer, my friend, we are playing swordless. There is nothing reasonable left of this game.
Yeah, I mean, call me crazy, but swordless actually is in a way kind of fun, for at least in my opinion. It's it's a fun challenge.
You're crazy. Yep. Hey, you gave me permission. Don't even. You said call me crazy. I am merely complying.
I mean, what do you expect from a scientist bear?
Cross keys.
True.
Which is next week's mode, in case any of you didn't know.
With pseudo boots.
Which just makes it less terrible.
Yeah, I mean, again, call me crazy. I think pseudo boots works better in an entrance mode.
It definitely takes certain things that could make the mode absolutely terrible in terms of connectors being required to move around the world and makes them less terrible. So I'll give you that. Meanwhile, Slumberjack making pretty much the same set of plays that Homemade Beer here did. Gonna grab what I believe was a piece of heart out of here and then just nope right on out. Although we might see a Hera check here, since Slumberjack does have the mirror, and it does look like that's what we're going to be doing. Oh, I didn't realize that Slumberjack hadn't checked Hookshot Cave. Wow, that is living life on the edge as Armos Knights drops us the book. Thanks, buddy. We would love to see that late.
And this is because this is like he hasn't been up to the Dark Death Mountain ever, so this is him not doing Hookshot Cave is part of that.
Right, but I think in that situation I'm doing Hookshot Cave before I run into TR without a fire rod.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Like
that's what baffled me. I was like, whoa, that could have gone really badly for you, bud.
It depends on how you route it, really. It's some people will do Hookshot Cave like second or Hookshot Cave first. I don't. There's not really a clear distinction between the two. You're gonna do both. You're doing both things either way. You're doing like one of two things. You're getting the medallion information, and you're getting and you're also doing Hookshot Cave.
Slumberjack has elected to skip the Hera green pendant shenanigans completely. Check Spike Cave didn't do anything. Homemade Beer has grabbed this book and is headed straight in the desert, which is kind of interesting because we know that Slumberjack can also get here, but the other way. So, kind of a bit of an improvement of routing on Slumberjack's side here.
We are looking for Fire Rod Go mode between the two runners.
Yep.
And here, Slumberjack will give the information out because really you don't want to do like Mire area when you have no mirror. Unless that's your last thing you do in the desert area. Which is, I believe, what Homemade Beer is doing. Because he chose to go into, with that book, he goes to do the front of desert, like goes into desert through the front. And then after he's done with that, he, I guess, flutes to 6 to do the Mire area.
Well, Homemade Beer doesn't have mirror, to my knowledge. Because he hasn't done Smith. So that's where things kind of get iffy.
That's what I mean. Like, that's how else you're going to do the Mire area, which is after you do the front of the desert. You do desert from the front. Thankfully,
that is both items on a desert.
Yeah, and it is also a double ether this seed.
Hey, Blue Goo and Mire Shed. We're not saying no to that. So yeah, Slumberjack is a fire rod away from being able to dash and dodge as quickly as he can, and Homemade Beer is that fire rod plus a mirror.
Yeah, and it so far it feels like Slumberjack has an advantage, although it's kind of hard to say.
It's one of those situations where, like, right now, Slumberjack feels like there's a slight advantage, but on the flip side, if Homemade Beer ends up finding that fire rod and Slumberjack uses the mirror to check a bunch of stuff that may or may not include a full clear of Swamp Palace as opposed to a go mode of it, that advantage could super easily just shift.
Correct. Yeah, because with that mirror, that opens up quite a bit of checks to do, and with Homemade Beer not having that mirror, he's at least having a safe, a saving like a safety net in a way.
Right. Unless, of course, the fire rod is behind the mirror, then obviously the clear advantage is Slumberjack's. But because we don't know, they don't know, nobody knows, we'll find out. Almost saved there for Homemade Beer. That was almost a saved 1 cycle. Instead, we got a 2 cycle. Still well done.
And another thing to point out too, and this is something that was mentioned in the chat too, is that the fact that the mirror is on the Smith chain. It's also that's one of the reasons why that I would say that Slumberjack has an advantage, just because doing mirrorless Smith chain is never fun. Never ever fun.
That's fair. I would counter that doing flute mirrorless Smith chain is significantly more fun than doing fluteless mirrorless Smith chain. But I do agree that without that mirror, you really don't want to be messing around with Smith chain at all, honestly.
Right, and that's fair. Like you cut out a portion of walking / dashing just by having flute alone. And yeah, this is what I was thinking. Homemade Beer, after the desert clear, goes into Mire, or the Mire area, to just be on his way. But here, Homemade Beer, knowing that this is a double ether, and I mean, to be fair, he had all 3 medallions, so he would be heading into Mire either way. He's gonna head into Mire. This is for another crystal. If Fire Rod was on the purple chest or the Bombos tablet, that only bolsters the advantage that Slumberjack has.
I don't know that it does, because Slumberjack at this point has said goodbye to that purple chest. Like, maybe Bombo's tablet, I'll give to you, is more likely to be a situation where Slumberjack just goes and grabs it maybe on the way to Swamp Palace or something, but purple chest was left behind. Like, I would almost think that Homemade Beer would commit to checking the entirety of Smith Chain over Slumberjack, who's already done the Smith and the Peg, so it's literally just a grab of that purple chest, and there's no other reason to be in that area.
Right, and that's totally understandable. Like, the purple chest is as worse for Slumberjack as it is for Homemade Beer.
Right, purple chest at this point is probably one of the worst locations, if not the worst location, for that fire rod to be.
Okay, so both runners are in Mire now. This is reasonable because you have a crystal on board.
Yep, swordless, all dungeons or otherwise, you have a crystal, clear a crystal.
These like more like advanced modes, if you have a crystal, you clear it if you can do it.
Right, and on top of that, with both runners having silvers and the lamp, it makes the otherwise difficult parts of Mire, getting through Dark Mire without a sword and dealing with Vitreous without arrows, much less difficult because, well, we have all the stuff we need to make it not terrible. That, for the record, is the second game in a row that Big Key has been there. Just want to point that out.
And this really isn't, I guess from I'm guessing it's not really a Seableed thing. Well,
no, but it's literally just because this is the doubleheader for this team, and I calmed the first race, so I just
I mean,
being there.
I guess using Seedbleed in the context of League is probably wrong.
You could say it's PRNG.
No. That's a pseudo random number generator. Thank you very much.
Big key's always there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, we are going to head to the back of Meyer now.
Yeah, we'll see if Slumberjack does the cutscene chest. I think we're still missing an item here, and it's a 50-50 for either Vitreous or cutscene. We'll see which one of those it ends up being in a second here. This could also be a big play because while I don't think Homemade Beer is necessarily going to skip it if Vitreous doesn't have the second item, it's going to feel terrible to walk back into Meyer for one item and have it be cutscene chest.
Yeah, this is one of these plays where really that like it depends on how you feel about cutscene chest. If you don't like cutscene chest, then you're gonna leave it until you don't find the item and you have to do it. But if you do like cutscene chest, then you're gonna do it.
See, this feels too similar to me to skipping the Eastern Palace big key chest. When you have a 50-50 for that third item, for me to ever skip it, I just go do it, because I really don't want to come back. And as it turns out, that play didn't work out. This should be our second item, unless I can't count. And hello, Fire Rod!
So that is go mode. Oh, well, go mode for Slumberjack once he gets the mid-heat.
Yep. So now Slumberjack will be grabbing Fire Rod in a minute here, and Homemade Beer has to go grab that mirror. So now I will freely say that Slumberjack has the advantage because
now
Fire Rod's right here.
Now this could be an advantage if Homemade Beer does not head over to the mirrorless Smith chain. Like this because right now Homemade Beer has a once Slumberjack finishes up Meyer, he has a one dungeon lead over Slumberjack.
That's fair, and Homemade Beer is also going to be in the closest area to that Smith chain right now. So this is the time to do it. Like, you clear Skull Woods, you check the ped. Yeah, because we're looking for Mirror, and so Mirror could be on ped as far as Homemade Beer is considered. Oh, wait, you can't check the ped, you idiot! You don't have a mirror. Good lord. I'm not tired, you're tired. So yeah, you kill Moth, you grab the second item that's sitting here in Skull Woods, and then if you're gonna do Smith Chain, now is the time. And if Homemade Beer does not do the Smith, then yeah, it's the advantage is to Slumberjack, because Slumberjack's gonna be able to go mode, dungeons, and Homemade Beer will not be doing so.
Correct. This is really going to depend on how Homemade Beer feels about doing the mirrorless Smith chain, which, according to chat, it might be a situation where, if Homemade Beer does ice prior to doing Smiths, then that is going to be a problem. And you also too, you have Turtle Rock. Which Turtle Rock without mirror do without doing Mimic Cave. That's what it was. That's also kind of So okay, here comes. So this is go mode for Slumberjack of 108.46.
Yep, meanwhile, Mothula is a wonderful shade of ruby and emerald, and is not playing nice today.
Shout out to the Power Shuffle, by the way. I love me that
Shout outs to the spikes, making sure that Mothula has 3 times the health it normally would.
And it's not fun because programming is hard. Programming for the Super Nintendo is hard. It's all assembly.
I agree, and they decided to continue on that programming difficulty by making sure that I have to smack Mothula around way more than I should otherwise. So it's kind of just like everyone sharing stuff and being nice.
So Homebeer is choosing to save quit. This is Turtle Rock?
This is a flute. Oh, never mind, it's Turtle Rock. Yep. Wow, that's a play.
So at this point, this is definitely Slumber. This is a advantage for Slumberjack.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Doing Turtle Rock before doing Ice Palace in this situation, that is a gutsy call.
Fair. Well, that would be true if the fact it was a crystal. Which that.
Oh,
crystal,
right. I keep forgetting that Ice Palace isn't a crystal. I don't know why.
Crystal priority. Crystal priority.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. No, I didn't. For some reason, I looked at the tracker and thought that Ice Palace was a crystal, so ignore that.
Yeah, like this is, well, it's just plain priority with the crystal. We know that this doesn't have mirror, but Homebeer won't know that until he finishes up the play that he started when he did the Fire Outlaws Turtle Rock play.
Right. Unfortunately, the entire play gambit of, hey, look, you need one more item. Don't worry, it's in Turtle Rock, is relatively common. So this, in a lot of seeds, would be the correct play to make. But in this one, Mirror was hiding somewhere a little farther away from home. Yeah,
the fact that it's a 1 to 5 one item away from Gomo to 5 items in the dungeon ratio, that is what drives the players to do Turtle Rock when they're 1 away from Gomo and it's a crystal.
Wow, so the front 3 in TR handing us the required small key and no other small keys or big keys. That's kind of interesting. Usually you at least run across 2 smalls, or a small and a big.
That does actually mean that potentially you would have to do the lava chest.
Right. If this isn't a big key, then you're definitely going to have to do it.
Which is not. Well, but I guess to be fair, you had to do that small key anyway.
Right.
Because you need it, right.
So yeah, we're gonna be full clearing TR regardless because we have the big key being vanilla.
And yeah, this is something that Slumberjack will have to deal with too, because once he gets to Turtle Rock. Okay, so with this, Slumberjack is gonna go ahead and start the Argus fight. The very, very slow Argus fight, because this is Starless we're talking about.
So I'm personally a fan of watching, not playing. Watching the quick swap hook to silvers to hook to silvers to hook to silvers.
Wait, what?
So what you can do is you can pull puffs, and then you can quick swap over twice and kill them with a silver arrow. The problem with that is that if you quick swap 1 extra time, you end up at the mirror. So it's a very dangerous trap, but I have seen people do it.
Oh. Yeah, like if you overshoot it, then that's a problem.
Right, if you overshoot it, then you're wow.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any less amazing to watch and just sit there and be like, are we going to see a mirror today?
Not going to lie, that I may want to try for myself. Like, as crazy as that sounds. I've been saying that a lot today, but...
Oh, it's so much fun. It's also one of the most terrifying things you'll do in a rando. Just knowing that you were like You are one left trigger away from losing 3 minutes.
Okay, unrelated. Slumberjack finishes up the swamp dungeon, or swamp dungeon. It's for the Argus fight in Swamp Palace, and that's 4 crystals on the board. And so Slumberjack will go into Eastern. This is fine because it is quicker. You have Eastern, you have Skull. Those are two quick dungeons, and then you have Turtle Rock, which is slow no matter how you slice it.
Yep, speaking of homemade beer, is sitting here on Laser Bridge and is desperately hoping to find a mirror, and unfortunately is not going to find a mirror.
Yeah, and very soon that dungeon lead the dungeon lead that he had prior is going to be just slowly fading away. By the time, I mean, he'll still finish up Turtle Rock, so that will still give him the crystal lead, but right now, Slumberjack is going into through Eastern. He's right on his toes when it comes in terms of the crystal count.
Right. Basically, Slumberjack is about 5 minutes away from being in the middle of that climb up towards TR. And even so, Slumberjack will have a longer dungeon to complete than a Go Mode Ice Palace, but homemade beer obviously still has to find that mirror. And there are lots of places where that mirror can be, unfortunately. None of them good.
Go Mode Ice Palace, you say?
Oh, did I say Ice Palace again?
Yes, you did.
All right, I'm going home. Good night, everyone.
Anyway, homemade beer finishes up the Shrine exploit. Oh, and yeah, right about now he realizes, oh no, it's not here. Where could it possibly be? And at the same time, Slumberjack finishes up Eastern. That's now 5 crystals on the board. Homemade beer is on 6 crystals now. Okay, so what is he gonna do from here?
So this wasn't a move towards Hera, which is one thing that's going to save time, because that's also 3 items. Okay.
Looting to 3.
I think this is it. We don't have anything else to do up here, right?
We are gonna do a pet check, which we know it's not gonna be anything, but homemade beer thinks it could possibly be there too, because he's busy looking for mirror. Makes sense because you don't have mirror yet, right? And you just want to find that thing, man.
Well, this is also a great idea because with the dungeons that we have for pendants, if it's here, then you get to just go mode 3 dungeons real quick and grab it, which is going to save you a boatload of time overall. But it's not there, so we're fluting again.
To 8, and this is an Ice Palace play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think at this point, Slumberjack very much assuredly is going to have an advantage.
Right. At this point, I think we're calling this Slumberjack's race to lose.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's Ice Palace isn't a bad dungeon with Samaria, but this just isn't the right one.
Well, right. The problem that we're looking at, if we're being honest, is that we've got a whole bunch of 3s. Hera has 3 items with that green pendant. Ice Palace has 3 items. Smith Chain is 3 items. And you have to pick the right 3. Not to mention, Thieves Town also has 2 that are left. But that's probably going to be the last thing on anyone's mind because of the huge time sink for doing the back of Thieves Town. So it's just like, you just have to pick which section is going to be correct. And that's a pick that Slumberjack made correctly a little bit earlier, and now Homemade Beer is not as lucky.
Yeah, it's also possible that in his mind, it may just be a pick a pendant. Because all he has left is that he has left available that's not just the Smith chain, is pendants.
Exactly.
So, okay, anyway, it's crystal number 6 for Slumberjack. So now that's lead, that crystal vantage is been pretty much wiped away. And yeah, it really just is, it's just the I think what it really came down to really is just the, or wait, is he not going through? Chose not to, he's out of ice.
I think he pulled 2 ice. Oh, he got all 3? Wow, that was quick. I thought I only saw 2. So yeah, chat confirming he pulled all 3 out of ice, and because he's already done the ped, he knows that Ice Palace is completely useless.
That's true. Yeah, that was, I wasn't really paying attention to the amount of items that was being thrown out.
Speaking of sets of 2 and 3, we also do have a red bomb that could be it. That's going to be for 2 items, and Homemade Beer's doing that next.
Right, and I was going to comment really was that really what kind of made this the difference is, or it's starting to become the difference, is that Slumberjack went for the mirrorless Smith chain, and it paid out huge. Right,
that's one of those, you make a check on a whim and you pull the mirror and you go, ho, that may have just won me the race.
Yeah, that is one of those cases where if I were to put this in a race, if I got that in a race, it's like, okay, we're looking, it's early, mind you, early. If I just got it early, I'm like, okay, perfect. This might help me.
See, that's where you and I are different, because every time I do something like that, I feel like my opponent would have already also immediately done it, and I have no advantage. I just have to run. That's just how I feel when I'm personally racing. And it might be how Slumberjack feels right now as well. It depends on the person and on what you assume your opponent will or will not do.
Okay, so now Slumberjack is in Turtle Rock. He is floating back over to how many is floating back to 3? Will this be, is this either a Thieves Town play or is this the Smith chain play?
Right, this is one or the other at this point. And it is okay, so Homemade Beer is going to be in go mode shortly.
And this now feels close.
It is close enough for GT routing to decide it. Yes.
It really is gonna. It's more likely gonna be a situation where I think Slumberjack will be just over the halfway point in Turtle Rock. That Slumberjack will still have the advantage, but yeah, it's still close.
Yeah, I feel like Slumberjack is probably going to have about half of the basement done by the time Homemade Beer gets up there, which is an advantage, but is only 11 items out of 22 an advantage. And there are enough items in GT that if you route one way versus your opponent routing another way, you can literally swing 5 minutes just on routing alone. And that's not even including doing something silly like feeling like you're really behind because you pulled a late mirror out of the Smith and then turn around and just go do the tile room and pull a big key, which is also an option. That could be a 7-minute swing. So like GT has plenty of fun.
Not to mention, one thing that we're not commenting, as we are about to hit go mode at around 123.50. The execution. It's all about execution.
Right. And especially with swordless gauntlet, there are a lot of ways that goes wrong. Also, keep in mind, Slumberjack is taking the first kind of safety-ish door here, which makes sense given that early TR keys were very slim, but that's also taking a little more time here. Just a full heart in that full chest, or in that big chest, but us putting it at 10, I don't think our runners are saying no to that. So yeah, it's going to be close enough to be interesting.
I personally wouldn't have taken the door, even even considering the fact that the key layout had you it was a forced lava chest. But again, it's just my personal opinion, really. All right, so Lumberjack is heading to is almost at Laser Bridge. Homemade Beer is about to head into Swamp.
Yeah, I think Slumberjack is going to have 2 to 2.5 minutes on Homemade Beer, which is roughly half of a full GT basement clear. So it's going to depend upon the big key, upon their routing, and then upon the, late game execution. Which there's plenty of that in a swordless seat.
With swordless is one of those things where execution really, really matters. If you can, if the execution in the gauntlet starts to falter, then that could change. That could easily sway the race in favor of another runner, and it could also happen to the other runner. And it's just going to be a back and forth battle.
Yep, we are continuing to near it though, and so as we are sitting here with just a boss fight away from the GT climb on Slumberjack's side, there are 22 locations in the basement. One of them contains that big key. Professor Renderer, are you a fan of spouting out a number or spouting out a location?
I don't know. I haven't really been participating in the game in a while, but I guess I guess since you mentioned it, I guess I can go and say 5.
Okay, so you're going for relatively early. You want this coming down to execution.
Yeah, I want this to be an execution race, mainly. This. It would be if it's early, then yeah, this is gonna be a full-on execution race. Also, one thing I forgot to mention: Homemade Beer still has to do a climb after he does a mountain climb after he's done with Swamp.
Yeah, that's why I said that Slumberjack was gonna have about a 2-minute lead.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to throw that out just I got to make it clear.
Yep, fair enough. With that, Turtle Rock is done. That is crystal number 7, and let the fun begin. I'm gonna hope that it's in the compass room, because I feel like that is one of the most hit or miss set of locations. So I just want it to be in the compass room because I have to pick a chest. I'll go ahead and say the bottom left chest in the compass room. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, makes sense. If you get a key there, it's early. Otherwise, it still can be early. It just may not be in compass room.
And that's why I love compass room, because depending on your routing and what you get, it can completely change when you get there. So much fun.
Right. Okay. Guesses would close as soon as Slumberjack enters GT. And stop.
Alrighty, so Hope Room. Well,
1.
Never mind.
Oh, it's close.
Yep, just give us the small key. Let's go.
It's close. It is close now.
Not close enough.
Yeah, I mean, true. Because I mean, if it was later, if it was a little bit later, then yeah, it would have been closer. But if it being 1, that's just yeah. And yeah, and as Chess pointed out too, the beer could still go go left, and that could change things.
Right. Yeah. At this point, best case scenario, beer is behind by about 2 minutes. Worst case scenario, beer could be behind about 6. Although I see very few people go full left at this point. I feel like worst case scenario, while being logical and playing the odds, is we get like we get a Dark Magician strat where, beer checks 5 checks first and then goes to open.
Yeah, and that's a thing that can happen. But right now, Slumberjack's on the gauntlet now. This is where that's where the more stressful part becomes. You're doing the gauntlet with Y items only. That's the one thing that's really tough about Soreless. It's just like, as soon as you get into GT, things start to become very, very scary. Because if you were to die at any point in this climb, this pretty much, you feel like you've lost, even though you may have had a significant advantage going in.
Right, and on that note, Slumberjack having a little bit of difficulty with the silvers early on, and has taken a look at that green goo sitting there in the bottle and says, you know what? We're going to use area of effect damage to our advantage, and we are going to blow everything out with fire.
One other thing to note too, there's no powder.
Yeah, that's fair. I believe the Slumberjack has a green and a blue. Homemade beer, I know, has a blue. I'm not sure about the rest of it, though. And Homemade beer is doing at least Dark Magician strats, so a little bit more time loss here, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is giving Slumberjack more and more time. He doesn't know this, but this is giving him this is giving Slumberjack more time. And yeah, with that mirror being pulled out, this is definitely a DM route. So in a way, this is 5, but in a way it's 5, but it wasn't. But since we go off of Slumberjack first, because he was the first one to enter GT, it's still 1.
Yeah, you know what? Since you want it so bad, I'll give you your kind of victory. Although technically it's 6 because we do count the torch.
True.
But yes, you were close. You were calling for an early big key, and you definitely got one. So.
I don't know what's up with me recently. I keep forgetting the torches also counts as 1.
Slumberjack gonna have to be careful here with 2 hearts. I believe that he has not been inclined to use those potions. There's a bit of a debate, and then a continuance of I'm not going to use those potions. So let's be careful.
Yes, this now this could be a big deal if Slumberjack were to die here.
Honestly, even if Slumberjack doesn't die, if Slumberjack decides to do the Aga fight without using a potion, even without a death, it's just terrifying. And now, with that 1 green goo, it's nice. We can use it to cape to give us some time for Ganon. But, well, okay. That's giving Homemade beer a little more time.
Moldorm was just simply not playing nice there. I could tell, right. Like he was just, Moldorm was just right up in the corner, and he just did not give Slumberjack any time. So it really was just like, that's just Moldorm being Moldorm. It wasn't really like a fault of Slumberjack's.
Right, especially being swordless. Meanwhile, if you didn't catch it on the other screen, Homemade beer had to drop his blue as well. I don't know if Homemade beer has any goos left over, because I know that Slumberjack grabbed that green one specifically. I don't think Homemade beer did. So I think right now we're looking at Slumberjack having a green and Homemade beer having a nothing.
Slumberjack won't fluff anything. Given the fact that I gave away a blue potion, I probably would have pulled Moldorm 2 to see if I could find like a heart or something to make it just to have just a bit more niceness to it, in a way.
All right, so we have Aga 2 with the bug net, not as terrible as it could be. So far, we are 1-1. And honestly, pulling singles every single thing there is good. That could be a double. It also could be a single.
Yeah, and what Slumberjack's just doing is just is net dash strats so that he gets more. He's able to keep his the range that he gets when he's dashing, so he can hit it pretty safely.
Right. All right, so nicely done there. I believe that was a 112-11001. No, sorry, 112-1001. Don't quote me on that. Swordless Aga fights are hard.
Swordless Aga fights are hard. There really is no way else to go about it. It's just those fights. You either are dealing with a Hammer Aga and Aga 2, which is terrible, or you're dealing with a Bugnet Aga 2, which, depending on what you have. If you don't have boots, it might be a problem, but with boots, it's at least a little nicer.
Right, there are certain setups that Aga 2 could do to make.
Boy, oh, that's a bad spot for that powder.
Yeah, I had a situation where I had a sentence in mind, and then my brain just went powder, and then that was it. I literally just swirled. Anyways, Ganon being relatively friendly here in Phase 2, giving us a nice thing. Slumberjack having a really good lineup there, so as to not be knocked left or right. Gonna use that cape, and yeah, we're gonna have to wait for the second motion here to set up a. Okay, a little bit of chaos. All right, cool. Got a first hit on him. That fire bat's gonna go away, and then we can just play this as normal.
We were taking a triple, so that's nice. Kind of have a little bit more time on this fight.
Whoa, that hammer hitbox being a little bit scary there. Okay,
has to be a little careful here because has 3 hearts. A hug is enough to kill here.
Yeah, a hug is definitely GG, even with red mail.
And
that fire bat's gonna do 2 hearts, I believe. So we got to be careful on those 2.
I'm more worried about the knockback.
Oh, you mean like the knockback nearly into cannon?
Oh, this has gone a little bit scarier now.
I would not have done that. All right. Okay. Oh, it didn't count. Oh no.
Elliot, good. At least there's no fire bat. There's no fire bat here. Oh man, this is now like very, very scary. God, you're Slumberjack, please. You're making me scared here. But thankfully, just squeezing by with just 1 heart to spare. GG's in the chat for Slumberjack. He's gonna take this game against Homemade Beer and Beats from the East, coming in with an official race time.gg time of 1:37:32.
Okay. That was terrifying.
Even the Triforce just straight up said he was sorry, even though it's just Buddy Princess over the castle. But, jeez, that is like, oh man. And GG's also to Homemade Beer. Very, very close race all around. Will finish second here. And the official race time will be, once he crosses, official race time, that GG time is 1:38:10.
Yeah, so Homemade Beer making up a bunch of time during that climb and for the Ganon fight. Making it, honestly, super close. But in the end, Slumberjack's routing was just a little bit better, was able to get to that mirror earlier, and it paid off.
Yeah. And
we are joined in the booth by both of our runners. GG's, my friends.
Hello.
GG.
Hello.
Slumberjack, you almost gave me a heart attack for that Ganon fight.
Oh, I'm sure. It was like my least practiced thing, and I'm like, oh no, I'm going into this with, I think I had like 7 or 8 hearts going into it. And I'm like, well, here we go. So I'm glad it went as well as it did, because if not, well, we know how that would have turned out.
There may have been a couple of times that it was, I'm sure chat was pleased that I was on push to talk because I screamed when you were practically on top of Ganon. Like when that fire bat hit you down to 1 heart and put you on top of Ganon, I was like, oh no, that's it. It's GG. This is insane. And then you just got out of there and I was like, oh my goodness.
You know, I'm here to create content, you know? We're here for a good time. That's it. Intentionally 100% what I was trying to do there.
Well, how about next time you give your commentators a little bit of a heads up because I nearly had a heart attack.
I'll see what I can do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, this was a very close race, even despite the fact between the both of you.
Yeah, this seed was crazy.
Yeah,
like I've never had a hammerless Aga seed in swordless yet. It was like actually the first one.
Oh wow! And this was like interesting for me because you don't usually see this coming up. Like you coming into this, you think that you would have a hammer if you didn't have Moon Pearl, really, or glove. Yeah,
I felt it coming. Yeah, like the Aga happening, and it's not in logic without the cane. But that was behind the flippers, so I was like, well, I'm not going to do Aga until I find the flippers. And that's basically what I was like, okay, it's time to go do Aga now when I found the flippers.
Well, the dumb thing was that, like, okay, sure, you could have an Aga seed you don't have a hammer for. And that's its own level of stupid and I hate you and whatever, swordless can just go rot. But, like, they could have given you the silvers or a fire rod, or something that does more than fighter sword damage to frickin' ball and chain guards, please.
Literally,
yeah. Yep.
And then after you put 16 hits on 2 ball and chain guards, you walk into the next room and you drop down a block, and then because they were just chasing you around the room. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you? Okay, I doubt you also did this, but I went into Aga's tower and then went, wait, I need a lot more magic for this. And then I had to go back and like actually get the magic pots to do Aga's tower with the cane. I goofed so hard on the opener. I was like, oh, I'm for sure going to lose. It's like I'm losing so much time. And the rest of the race, I felt like went pretty well for me. But like, oh man, I felt like I was so far behind at the start.
Well, yeah, like the escape key layout was really crappy for this seed because you have red mail by that point, unless you go there kind of later and stuff. But so like death warping really was awful there, and getting through escape to like kill everything and get all the stuff, I had wasted enough magic. But before I was gonna do Aga, I was gonna, no matter what, I was gonna get some potions anyway, because I was thinking even before doing escape, I was like, well, it'd be really hard to do Aga without a bottle, at least one bottle, and like there just weren't any anywhere. So I'm like, okay, fine, let's go grab potions and go do Aga, I guess.
Yep.
The play that ended up deciding this one was your pull of Mirror from the Smith chain quite a bit earlier than otherwise it could have been, because Homemade Beer, did TR, which makes sense because that's your most dense play. And then I could see him kind of looking at 5 options and they're all terrible. So then, of course, with Soma, you jump into Ice Palace because, you can check that really quick. And he got a really quick 3 items out of Ice Palace before then heading over and grabbing his Go Mode Mirror off of Smith. But that's kind of what ended up being the difference in terms of routing. And it ended up carrying you for the seed. So it was a good call on doing that mirror list. It's something I have a lot of difficulty doing personally.
It was basically the first time I went up Dark Death Mountain, I dodged Hera, and I'm like, and then I got the book, and I was like, that's like 4 checks now, and I'm like, well, I already kind of dodged it once, so I'm never going back to Hera, I decided at that point. And so by the time after I did Turtle Rock, I'm like, well, I could do Spike Cave. I'm like, well, that's part of the Hera sequence now. It just doesn't exist. So like that whole like upper West Death Mountain just didn't exist anymore. I wasn't gonna ever go over there. And so then all I had left at that point was the back of Thieves Town and Smith Chain. So I just did Smith Chain first, and then was going to do Thieves Town after and last locate Hera, which actually had me really nervous because I know that Mirror likes to be over there.
Yeah, and for me, it was more like I understand like Invitational, like so just to put things in perspective, I wanted to play against Homemade Beer because I have played against him multiple times since he started speedrunning, and I know how terrifying a runner he's become. And I just thought it would be fun to play against him. But I went into this completely like, all right, well, I'm going to have to make some risky plays, even if it means it doesn't make sense. So yeah, doing mirrorless, fluteless, blacksmith chain for me was just like the right call at one point. I think I just so happened to like route things with Pod and Thieves Town just right so that I could just scoop up right in that direction, got the mirror, and then I was like, all right, well, time to start checking all my stuff out. You know, how close am I to go mode? So yeah, have to make some gambles. Yep.
By the way, thank you for like the really kind words. I know that we've been playing a lot in the past, and you know we've been friends for a bit, so it was really cool that I saw we got to play together this week. But I was actually wondering, was Mirror ended up being your go mode, or was it Fire Rod then?
Fire Rod was my go mode.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yeah, this seed was this seed had jokes though. It was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my team earlier, and I was like, well, it's just open, and that's actually the worst part of it. You're just gonna get owned at some point because it's just open logic. Just you just don't have a sword to use, and it could have gone a completely different way. Again, my Ganon fight. If I told you in the race time room, don't watch it. But like, if you do watch it, you'll see how close it was for you to have completely taken this win super easily. But GG's again, and I just thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to comms. Thank you to trackers, restreamers, whatnot. And I'll leave it to all of you to close this out.
Yeah. So this is the end of this race. But right now, there is another race going on, and this is between Missing Playoffs and Team Go. It's GFB versus Vortex's Doom. That's on SpeedGaming too. So if you want to go over there, then that's all the power to you. It's gonna be a fun one, and looks like one that also is starting up, I believe, soon-ish. And that is the Flip Heel versus Vextover race. That's gonna be on SpeedGaming Prime. And I think I covered most of the things that's relating to ALTTPR League stuff. So from there, I'll just say thanks to Royale with Cheese for being our tracker for tonight. She put on an incredible showing here for this one. And of course, both of our runners were very, very well done. Like they put on a very hair-raising experience or show for.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I hope it was an enjoyable race, and I'm happy we split this week. I'm sad that I lost, but not so much that I felt like I played good and there was just an item in a weird spot. But the race was fun, so. I had a good time, and thanks everyone for putting on the show too. Comms and Professor Bender and Hammer and Royale with Cheese for tracking, of course.
Yeah, and I of course implore you to follow both these runners and our team, including myself and Hammer here. It was a fun race, very close one, and from there, I guess. Thanks for watching this, and we'll see you for the next race whenever that comes up. So, take it easy, everybody.